Hey folks, welcome back to part 3 of my all-time top 10, there's actually 11, heavyweight champions, boxers, fighters, whatever you want to call them. My top 11 heavyweights. I want to emphasize this is absolutely not a fantasy fight league. If your favorite fighter you think could beat any one of the guys on this list, you might be right. We don't know. If you think that number 10 should beat number 1, you might be right. We don't know. What I've done is I have looked at a number of different metrics. I've spent a ton of time calculating and whatnot, and had a real sheaf of papers with numbers. I looked at combined championship reigns, individual reigns, the biggest fight these guys ever had, quality of opposition, any firsts. So, you know, if you were undefeated or you were the first person to win multiple lineals, if you were the first African American, those sort of things, and public society impact. You know, how much did you advance the sport? Like, how well known were you? So you'll see that some of the ones in, for example, episode 2, part 2, Jack Dempsey scored really high because he was an absolute legend in the 1920s. You know, so much better known than was somebody who might have been a candidate who lived during the 1990s. And I started off with a list of, well, every heavyweight champion, plus I threw a whole bunch of others in here as well, right? So the numbers are what the numbers are. Are these my favorite fighters? No, they're not actually. So some of them are, but some of them aren't. It's just where the numbers drove the process. So go back and look at episode 1, the beginning. I would do a more detailed breakdown of what the metrics were. Right now, let's move on to number 5. Number 5, Jack Johnson, the Galveston Giant. I did a separate video on this guy. Please go and look it up for more details, because these are the views from 20,000 feet, well, 50,000 feet. Jack Johnson was born 1878. He died in 1946. He was born John Arthur Johnson, nicknamed the Galveston Giant, and who at the height of the Jim Crow era became the first black world heavyweight boxing champion. He reigned from 1908 to 1915. His 1910 fight against James J. Jeffries was dubbed Fight of the Century. And both this guy and Jeffries got additional points because they took part in that fight. He'd also been the world colored heavyweight champion for over 2,000 days as well. So, and many people would say that at that time, the world colored heavyweight championship was actually more prestigious than the world heavyweight championship because of the color bar. Anyhow, Jack Johnson, for more than 13 years, Jack Johnson was the most famous and most notorious African American on earth. And that's a quote from Ken Burns, who did an excellent PBS documentary about Jack Johnson. He became part of the culture of the United States of America. He also became part of the culture and the history of racism within the United States of America. His impact on society really elevates him up in this list. He was an inaugural 1954 inductee to the Ring Magazine's Boxing Hall of Fame, which was disbanded in 1987, and he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. In 2005, the United States National Film Preservation Board deemed the film of the 1910 Johnson-Jeffries fight historically significant and put it in the National Film Registry. During his career, Jack Johnson fought at least 114 fights, winning 80, 45 by KO. He also had the longest professional career of any world heavyweight champion, having boxed for over 33 years, from 1897 to 1931. That also got him additional points, by the way. That's 12,384 days. Muhammad Ali often spoke how he was influenced by Jack Johnson, and Ali identified with Johnson because he felt that he'd also been ostracized because of his refusal to go to Vietnam and his affiliation with the Nation of Islam. He beat Stanley Ketchel, he beat Jim Jeffries, he defeated Tommy Burns in 1908 for the title. Tommy Burns was in Australia, and Jack Johnson followed him there because people would not give Jack Johnson a title fight. And then they almost forced Jim Jeffries out of retirement way past his prime to try and claw the title back from Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson spent a period of time in exile because he had been in violation of the Mann Act, which was an act that prohibited the transportation across straight lines of white women for the purposes of prostitution by non-white men. That's a very broad generalization, but you get the idea. Undoubtedly, he'd been sort of stitched up. He faced incredible prejudice, and he refused to be obsequious. He, if you like, was the polar opposite to Joe Louis. Joe Louis was never photographed with a white woman. Joe Louis was always respectful, quiet, you would say docile outside of the ring in his public demeanor. Jack Johnson would have fitted in with 2025 America. Jack Johnson was outgoing. He was very loud. He more than associated with white women, and he refused to allow prejudice to affect him. He just basically ignored prejudice. And I strongly recommend that you go and maybe first port of call, have a look at my video on Jack Johnson on this channel, but much more importantly, go find the Ken Burns documentary about Jack Johnson and realize what a great, not just a great boxer he was, what a great human being he may have been, but what an important person he was, not just for the sport, but for the advancement of humanity, if you like, particularly in North America. So he's number 5 on my list. Number 4, the great Lennox Lewis, the Lion. Born in 1965, still with us, thankfully. Younger than me, of course he's still with us. Lennox Claudius Lewis was born 2nd September 1965. He's a British-Canadian boxing icon, Canadian-Brit. He competed in the heavyweight division from 1989 to 2003, his last fight against Vitaly Klitschko. He was a 3-time world champion, 2-time lineal, and held the undisputed championship. He was the last undisputed until Alexander Usyk fought Tyson Fury first time round to become the first undisputed in the 4-belt era. He holds dual Canadian and Brit citizenship. It's about the only thing that Lennox Lewis and I have in common. Lewis represented Canada as an amateur in the 1984 and 88 Olympics. He won the Super Gold heavyweight medal in 88. He's regarded by many as one of the greatest heavyweight boxers ever, and by far the greatest British heavyweight boxer of all time. He was the 7th Olympic gold medalist to become world heavyweight champion after Floyd Patterson, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Leon Spinks, and Michael Spinks. He holds the distinction of being the first professional heavyweight champion to hold a gold medal in the super heavyweight category. And that wasn't created until the Summer Olympics in 1984, which was in LA, I think. Yeah, Los Angeles. He's the only boxer to represent Canada at the Summer Olympics and subsequently win a professional world title. He was the first boxer to hold the British heavyweight title and subsequently win a world title. Many had tried before. Henry Cooper had tried, Joe Bogner had tried, Richard Dunn had tried, lots had tried. But Lennox was the first British heavyweight title holder to become a world champion. That's several people have, 3 actually, not several, 3 have repeated that. Herbie Hyde, Tyson Fury, and Anthony Joshua. Lewis also won the Lonsdale belt outright. Now, Lewis struggled to really achieve much popularity at first. A couple of reasons. The Brits thought he was a Canadian. The Canadians didn't really get behind him either, to be perfectly honest. And Americans didn't really warm to him. Eventually, his body of work spoke for itself. He was the last undisputed heavyweight champion, like I said, and he was the first Brit, first person actually since Ken Norton to have been awarded the heavyweight championship without winning a championship when the WBC awarded him a title, because Riddick Bowe dropped the title in the bin, didn't fight him. Lewis had become the mandatory to Riddick Bowe because he'd beaten Donovan Razor Ruddock, and then Bowe, many people would say, ducked Lewis. I think there's a lot of politics in the background to that. He became the fourth boxer after Muhammad Ali, Evander Holyfield and Michael Moorer to have held the World Heavyweight Championship on 3 occasions. Lewis defeated 15 boxers for the World Heavyweight title, and that's the 5th most in history. His combined 3 reigns add up to 3,086 days, which is 8 years, 5 months and 13 days, which ranks as the 4th longest cumulative time spent as World Heavyweight Champion. At 4 years, 2 months and 15 days, Lewis has the 12th longest reign in heavyweight championship history. Never, I was going to say never beaten. He was beaten. He was beaten twice, but he avenged both defeats. So he was never beaten, and then the guy walked away having said, "Oh yeah, I beat Lennox Lewis," because Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman beat Lennox, but Lennox revenged the loss in each case. Other famous names on record, of course, are Mike Tyson. He beat Mike Tyson, he beat Evander Holyfield, he beat everybody in his generation, with the exception really of Riddick Bowe, who arguably ducked him, and George Foreman, who I think it's fair to say Lennox wasn't too keen on fighting. It seemed like a lose-lose situation, really. So he is my 4th all-time heavyweight champion, and one of my personal favorites. But I couldn't get him any higher than where he is. Number 3 is Larry Holmes, the Eastern Assassin. Born November the 3rd, 1949. He's still alive. He's the last of the great 1970s boxers, though many people would say he was really early 80s. He competed from 73 to 2003, and he won the championship in 1978, and he held it until 1985. Considered to be one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Grew up in Eastern Pennsylvania, hence he's called the Eastern Assassin. Not Eastern, but Eastern. His left jab is rated as amongst the very best in heavyweight boxing history. Holmes also held the Ring magazine and lineal titles from 80 to 85, and he was the holder of the inaugural IBF belt from 83 to 85. Holmes won his first 48 professional bouts, including victories over Ken Norton, who he defeated in 78 to win the championship, Muhammad Ali, Ernie Shavers, Mike Weaver, Jerry Cooney, Tim Witherspoon, Carl Williams and Marvis Fraser. He fell 1 short of matching Rocky Marciano's career record of 49-0 when he lost to Michael Spinks, 1985, an upset win. He retired after losing a rematch to Spinks, but then he made repeated comebacks against Tyson in 88, Holyfield in 92, McCall in 95 and Brian Nielsen in 97. He fought for a final time in 2002, age 52, against a 334-pound Butterbean, and ended his career with a record of 69 wins, 6 losses. All of his losses came in world title fights. Holmes is frequently ranked as one of the greatest boxers of all time. He's inducted into both the IBF Hall of Fame, the World Boxing Hall of Fame, and he's the only boxer to have defeated Muhammad Ali by stoppage. Now, of course, Ali was 38. It was 1980. Ali should never have been in the ring. But he's also the last living boxer to have defeated Muhammad Ali. All the others have now passed away. So, that is the great Larry Holmes. Had the misfortune really to step into the shoes of Muhammad Ali. Shoes that were very, very, very hard to step into. Number 2. Muhammad Ali. Born Cassius Marcellus Clay, January 17th, 1942 to June the 3rd, 2016. Ali was not just a professional boxer, he was a social activist, he was a world personality, a global cultural icon, known as the greatest. He's frequently cited as the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, and for many years I would have sworn up and down that he was the one who should occupy the first place. He was undisputed champion he held the Ring Magazine heavyweight title from 64 to 70, undisputed from 74 to 78, was the WBA and Ring heavyweight champion from 78 to 79, 1999 Sportsman of the Year, and Sports Personality of the Century by the British Broadcasting Corporation. He remains the only 3-time lineal heavyweight champion. He's the only boxer to be named Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year 6 times, and was involved in more Ring Fight of the Year bouts than any other fighters. Inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in the first year, held wins over 7 other Hall of Fame inductees, including an era that has been called the Golden Era of heavyweight boxing. He has records of beating 21 boxers for the World Heavyweight title and winning 14 unified title bouts. Beat Sonny Liston 64, beat Sonny Liston twice, beat Floyd Patterson, beat Joe Frazier, beat Ken Norton, beat Ernie Shavers, beat George Foreman in Rumble in the Jungle. And of course, he took part in a trilogy with each of Norton and Frazier. And the Thriller in Manila is thought to be one of the greatest fights ever. I think the Thriller in Manila is the best of the fights with Frazier, even though they're both clearly past their best by then. It's 1975. He retired in 1981 after losing to, first of all, Larry Holmes in 1980 and then Trevor Burbeck. For many years, I thought Muhammad Ali was the greatest, the very best. People can argue. People can say he lost to Doug Jones. People can say he kind of cheated with Henry Cooper by getting his glove cut. People can say that the way he behaved towards Joe Frazier was absolutely despicable. People can say lots of negative things about Muhammad Ali. He brings his girlfriend to the Rumble in the Jungle, and then his wife shows up. That must have been an interesting conversation, hey? And yes, there's truth to all of those things, a greater or lesser extent. People can say really bad things about Ali. People can also say what a magnificent athlete he was, what a magnificent human being he was, what wonderful things he did. He was a global icon. That is the best way to put it. Everybody knew who Muhammad Ali was. And Ali scored... I'm just going to back up the bus a bit. Jack Johnson scored 500 points. It was 10 points higher than George Foreman. Then Lennox had 545, Larry Holmes was 562, Ali 706. Quite the jump from number 3 upwards. Number 3, Larry Holmes 562 to 706. That's the biggest jump. When we look at John L. Sullivan, he had 442 in points. So everybody from Larry Holmes down to John L. Sullivan was in that spread, 562 to 442. So it's 110. Now there's a jump, 706 to Muhammad Ali. And number 1, Tyson Fury. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't throw your device away. just joking. Number one, the guy I used to argue about with my long deceased father. I have to say, I think my dad was right all those years ago. Joe Louis, 1914 to 1981, the Brown Bomber. Born Joseph Louis Barrow. I've done a video on this great champion, so you should go and look at this, of course. Nicknamed the Brown Bomber, Louis is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential boxers of all time. He was the world heavyweight champion from 1937 until his temporary retirement in 1949. Victorious in 25 title defenses, a record for all weight classes. The longest single reign as champion of any boxer in history. His cultural impact was felt well outside the ring, widely regarded as the first African American to achieve the status of a nationwide hero, and was the focal point of anti-Nazi sentiment leading up to and during World War II because of his historic rematch with Max Schmeling in 1938. He was also instrumental in integrating the game of golf, helping break the sport's color barrier in America by appearing under a sponsor's exemption in a PGA event in 1952. Participated in 26 championship fights, defeated 21 fighters, made 25 defenses, like I say, was world champion for 11 years and 10 months. He has won the most world heavyweight title fights in history. And he was named Fighter of the Year 4 times by the Ring magazine in 1936, 1938, 1939, 1941. His fights with Max Baer, Max Schmeling, Tommy Farr, Bob Pastor and Billy Conn were named Fighter of the Year by that same magazine. Lewis won the Sugar Ray Robinson Award in 1941. In 2005, Lewis was ranked as the best heavyweight of all time by the International Boxing Research Organization and was ranked number 1 on Ring magazine's list of the 100 greatest punchers of all time in a 1978 poll that was conducted by HBO. The Boxing Writers of America voted Lewis the greatest heavyweight of all time. Hank Kaplan, Burt Sugar, Teddy Atlas, George Foreman, Joe Frazier and Sugar Ray Robinson named Lewis as the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. When George Foreman was asked who was the greatest of all time heavyweight boxer, George Foreman said, "Number 1 is Joe Louis. There is no number 2. I rated him higher than Ali because it came down to very close. It came down to the championship reign, which was better than Ali's. And then it came down to the greatest fight. When he fought Max Schmeling for the rematch, there was so much pressure. Had Max Schmeling won, the belt would have gone to Nazi Germany. Now, Max Schmeling wasn't a Nazi, but the belt would have gone to Nazi Germany and it would have stayed. Everybody in America was putting so much pressure on Joe Louis because Joe Louis won the world heavyweight title, but he said, I don't really think I've won it until I beat Max Schmeling because Max Schmeling had beaten him. So he's got to fight a guy who he's lost to. He's got everybody in the country on his case demanding that he win. The president had phoned him up and said, we expect you to win. Like America was the bastion of Western democracy. Germany is under the fascist rule of the National Socialism Adolf Hitler. It's 1938. War's just around the corner. Also, he carried the pressure of being a champion of his race. This is pre-civil rights America. And a lot of white Americans were not necessarily supportive of a black man being heavyweight champion. And had he lost, it would have set black people as a group back. That's how people were thinking at the time, right? So he had all that pressure from the President of the United States to the kid that was delivering newspapers, to the shoe shine boy, to everybody in between. Had that pressure on Joe Louis to beat Max Schmeling, a man he'd had lost to. And that is what I say is the difference between that fight and Muhammad Ali fighting Joe Frazier in 1971, which captured public imagination. I was alive for that fight. I know about that fight. Everybody in school knew about that fight. But the 1938 rematch that Joe Louis had with Max Schmeling was a bigger fight, in my opinion. And that's why Joe Louis, together with his championship reign, edges out Muhammad Ali, even though people will say that his quality of opposition was not as good as Muhammad Ali's. And they are not wrong. But it is the cumulative reign, and it was a one reign. He didn't sort of lose it and then come back and all that sort of stuff. It was the fact that he was a champion for so long. The social impact was enormous. This fight with Max Schmeling was way more important than Ali's very important big fight with Joe Frazier, and it was bigger than the Jack Johnson-Jim Jeffries fight, which had been called Fight of the Century. Notable fights that Joe Louis took part in: he defeated Max Baer and Primo Carnera. He lost to Schmeling in 36, but avenged the loss in 38, first round knockout, no less. Knocked out Billy Conn, defeated Jersey Joe Walcott twice. He also served in World War II, and he did tons of exhibition fights, and he signed his checks over to the military, which came back to bite him very badly because it was thought to be money in his hands. What he did with it was his business, but he was taxed on those earnings, which he never spent a penny of. He was sign the checks, sign the back of the check and give it to the Army and Navy Fund. And so he was persecuted. I use the word persecuted, not prosecuted. The proper word is prosecuted. I'm using the word persecuted because that's really what it was. The American government treated Joe Louis with absolute despicableness. That's not even a word. He came out of retirement in 1950, lost to Ezra Charles, and his final fight was, of course, against Rocky Marciano in 51. Joe Louis, number one on my list. If my Father is in heaven looking down, he will say, "See, I told you, and you did not listen." Well, I have listened now. I am placing Joe Louis ahead of Muhammad Ali. And that's a wrap, folks. There's my top 10, which is 11, because I included John L. Sullivan. Let me know what you think. I strongly suspect that nobody out there will have the same 11. And some people will say that, oh, it's ridiculous that you got this guy or that guy. Some people will say, hey, I agree, this guy or that guy, that's right. I've had some feedback from the boys on Porky's Corner. Some of the picks were a little bit controversial, but people understand the metrics. I'd be very interested to know what you all think, and leave your comments below. It's a fun exercise to do, and if you have time, I strongly recommend it. It will cause you to, if you pick 30 and then you try to distill it down, you will find out that you'll be saying, but I like that guy. How come I can't get that guy higher? It's an interesting exercise. It really is. Depends on the metrics you pick, of course. Okie doke, folks. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.